Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spoil Your Baby podcast. I am so excited to have Carly Grubb here today. She's going to tell us all about her work with families. Carly, I think that you and I sort of started getting into this work around the same time. And all of your stuff has been, all of your work, all of your knowledge and sharing of your experiences have been so supportive to my work and to thousands and thousands of families around the world. So I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Greer. And yeah, I think I started writing back in 2016. I was
Yep.
saying 16, and then I started doing the peer support work in 2017. So that was when my second baby had just turned 1. So for people listening along, I had a pretty rough ride with my first baby. I came into babies as a primary school teacher background, and I'm very much a people-pleasing, rule-following person who wanted to get everything right. And I very much didn't know how to trust myself. And as it turned out, that also meant I would really struggle to trust my baby. He was a very sparkly, unsettled baby. He needed me a lot, but the noise around me made me feel like he needed me too much. And that the reason he was so needy was because of the way I'd been mothering him. So I was getting a lot of information around me that, I should be putting him down drowsy but awake, and I shouldn't be breastfeeding him to sleep. And that's why he was waking the way he did.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a little bit wakeful, though. I think that's something, when I say he woke a lot, he woke every 20 minutes to an hour for more than 18 months.
Yeah.
So
Carly, I was exactly the same. I have to get my mom on here. I was exactly the same. Yeah.
I had no idea that babies could be like that. And it sends you into a spiral, doesn't it? Like if you no clue about, like, I think I thought the newborn period was it. Like, you need to get through that. People talk about being really tired with a baby. Yeah. I in my head, I assumed that it just must get better from there, because I don't think I'd had many conversations with people about babies waking in the night and continuing to need parenting at night. Like, it just wasn't on my radar. So when it was happening to me, I assumed I was doing it wrong, and there was something wrong with my baby. And so I started to try and seek help. So, lack of understanding about baby behavior was my first into this work.
Oh my gosh. And those messages that, people tell you, and that's what so many parents hear, right? So many parents listening will have heard that from family members and friends, that their nurture and love is actually causing problems or issues with their baby. Yeah. And it's absolutely never the case. Absolutely, we want all parents to know that.
And I think the funny thing with going through the process with my first baby, and then I've had a second and a third baby, was realizing just how many layers of rubbish it is, the stuff that you get fed. And basically what it's doing is it chips away at your confidence, and it chips away at your nurturing behavior, so that you start believing you need external people to tell you what the right way is to care for your baby, and you lose trust. So you lose trust in yourself and your baby, your relationship, what they're saying to you, how you feel about, when they cry. You start to learn that those messages you're receiving are wrong, and it puts you in a really vulnerable place. So I'm Australian. I'm sure the listeners can hear my accent. And over here we have facilities that are actually government funded that you can attend with your baby to learn how to settle them. So they call them sleep and settling courses. Mm-hmm. And it's sleep training. I was there over a decade ago now, and it still pains me to say that I'm still hearing the same stories from parents about the way what you're taught there. And basically it's all encouraging you to nurture your baby less. You need them to need you less. You need to respond less. And you want them, the goal is independent sleep.
Independent to fall asleep and independent to stay asleep all night. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like all the information you're given about relationship and connection and your baby needing you and your relationship is just for the day.
Yeah.
Like it's like it all, the rules don't apply when it comes to sleep. That's only good if they don't need you. They make it seem like there's no value in that parenting work. So therefore you want to get rid of it.
Right.
So it didn't work well for me and my baby. If anything, it made things a whole lot worse, but it did work in that it completely undermined my confidence in myself. And so I went into a spiral, and afterwards it was very much the case that I went into crisis, basically. I believed that my baby was going to need a different mum. I didn't think that I could be his mum because I didn't seem to be able to get him the sleep he needed in the way they told me he needed it. I've been told that he was chronically sleep deprived and it would be affecting his brain development. And this is all with the turmoil going on inside me as well. Yeah. So it was a very rough period.
You're so vulnerable.
Oh, so vulnerable. It's an ugly time to reflect back on, but it's also kind of it was like the breaking and the making of me, because the bit that came after was I had a beautiful check-in midwife who called me one day, and I was in breakdown, and I was telling her that I didn't think I could do it anymore and everything else, and all the things I tried that did not work for him. And she just had asked, it was a really simple question, but she just said, "What does he need you to do, Carly?" And I said, "He just wants me to hold him and feed him, and he wants me."
Yeah.
And she just said, "Just do that." And it sounds so simple and clear now, but at the time I had this like whole shock reaction of, I can just do that?
Yeah.
I honestly did not know I could just do that.
And also without feeling bad or feeling like it was wrong.
Like, and it was this whole like, but I feel like I might die. Like, I'm so tired. I can't do those things because they're the things that are going to wreck his sleep. And, it was like mind blowing for me that, hang on a sec, he's my baby. I really can. I could just do that. Yeah. And it was from there I kind of dove right into learning more about shared sleeping, because I knew I couldn't put him down. And it was as soon as I started looking at that, I went, oh, well, I had mad guilt, because when you start looking into shared sleep information, I quickly discovered I'd actually been co-sleeping with him for months, because this baby could not be put down. I've been asleep with him on nursing chairs and on the recliner most of his life, because his bum barely ever hit the actual mattress in his cot. So I had this separate space prepared, but he never went in it. I couldn't get him in it. And so it's much more dangerous to be co-sleeping sitting up on a chair. And so when I realized I'd been sleeping with him in quite dangerous situations and knew then how to set up for safer shared sleep, it was like a mixture of guilt, but also relief, and to figure out how to sideline nurse him. And I can't tell you, the first night we slept together in the spare bed, because at the time I wasn't ready to have my husband there too, the relief on my body. I had been going for 6 months of getting up and down to the baby because I knew nothing about sharing sleep safely.
Yeah.
I had not kept my body flat for more than 20 minutes to an hour for 6 months.
Wow.
Laying in that bed and waking up the next day, he'd woken heaps, he'd fed heaps. None of that changed. I felt like a whole new woman.
Yeah.
Just from the lack of extra fatigue in tending to him in that separate space. And I was sold. I from that point forward, I probably would have said, it took me quite a while to accept what I was doing was our permanent solution.
Yep.
I kept thinking, this is just a stopgap. But in the end, it became the ultimate tool in my parenting repertoire. And I'm so grateful to have learned it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it. There's so many parts that I know parents will identify with, and so much to learn from it. So much to learn from it, of how we need to treat new mothers, how we need to give them support for the mother-baby relationship. That midwife, wow. What
I know.
if
she's
you hadn't
still
had
my
that
favorite.
conversation?
Yeah. I never got to speak to her again because it was this like anonymous service. Like not anonymous, but like I didn't have like a contact point, but her name was Kirsty. So I always say her name when I talk about it because I hope one day Kirsty actually hears the story and knows that she had the impact that she did.
Yeah.
But it was one person in all the volume of noise around me. It was one person who was able to reconnect me to myself and my baby and make it seem okay to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of power.
Yeah. The disconnection that happens in the sleep school and in all of the mainstream sleep and parenting advice that we see, it's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. And then when people find you and your work, it all changes, right?
It does, because basically out of it, it took me a while to be proud of myself. I was very ashamed. I did a lot of things hidden. I was still a bad parent because I still wasn't doing it the right way. So this wasn't like a, tick, you're all good, Carly, just do your own thing. Nope.
Yeah.
It was extremely
hard.
It was really hard. But it was after my second baby. I did still try all the things with him because I still did wonder if maybe it was my fault. But as it turns out, he was a baby too. And he also benefited from nurturing parenting.
Yeah.
So I quickly threw that out the window. But I was in mothers' forums at the time and I could see other mums starting to struggle with it. And that's when I started to share and say, guys, don't feel like this is the only way to handle sleep. Like you can do other things and your baby will be okay. It was from there that I ended up setting up the Beyond Sleep Training Project, which is a peer support group on Facebook. And we also have Little Sparklers, a charity that does the larger advocacy work and parent education that spawned from that. Yeah, and I didn't originally think it was going to be a peer support space, but it turns out that's what people needed. And the whole premise of the Beyond Sleep Training Project isn't a prescriptive fix. It's a space for people to imagine and learn from each other and hear different ways people practically made life work while they didn't sleep train their kid, or having sleep trained like I did and needing an alternative because it either didn't work or it didn't feel right, and so people stopped. We have about 190,000 members at the moment from around the world, and a lot of them, people come and go, but we're also there for people right through their journey. So some people have been there from the beginning in 2017 and their kids are now school age and they're supporting with their wisdom and knowledge from their experiences. But we're also, I love the fact that people come and go depending on their points in time in their life, but they know we're there. And so I felt like that's something I was missing. I didn't feel like I had a community. I felt deeply ashamed of myself. I didn't know other people who had babies like mine. And so that's what I was kind of looking for. I wanted to find what I thought was going to be a little niche, a little nook in the internet of fellow weirdos, because that's what I thought of myself. It turns out not so weird at all, because this is babies, and it's okay to go with what feels right in your heart. And also, one thing I don't think I knew back then that I know more than ever now is that actually the work's important. It's not just about surviving it. It's actually valuable parenting work. And the more we can help people understand that it's something you need to do because it's actually valuable to your baby's well-being, really helps to squash down that feeling that you need to do less of it as fast as you can. And I think that's a really valuable learning I had over my years, is to see the value in it and protect it in a way, make it possible for you in the long run, set yourself up for it so that it doesn't feel like you're just sprinting to a finish line. It's a marathon. Your baby's going to need you. They're going to need you for a long time. And it's really important work. So how can we manage to do that in a way that we can keep going and be the parents we hope to be? Not perfect, but be able to parent the way we need to parent our babies.
I love it. A couple questions. Tell us how your firstborn sleeps now that they've grown up.
He sleeps just fine. He's so funny. Like he goes to bed. But one of the things that's still with him, he'll still say, I hate sleep.
Right.
And it's like, oh, do you, mate? And he's like, yeah, it's like it gets in the way.
Gives a memory. Yeah.
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 And it's just like, but he sleeps beautifully.
Yeah. And your other children.
Yeah. Well, I've got one, my middle guy is obsessed with sleep, adores it. Favorite time of day. He'd be the first guy in his bed. He'll be sleeping in no time. Like he's like, I love my bed. Gets all snugged up and goes to sleep. And my girl, she's more of a like, yeah, it's what I do, but really it's interrupting my flow.
So fear of missing out.
Yeah, that's it, definitely. But they all sleep beautifully, and they all have, over the years we've had many sleep setups so that they were able to access me and the dad if they needed support in the night. It's never been we don't really have hard and fast rules about beds for our house. They all have their own spaces, but we've often had little stretcher beds next to our bed, or currently there's a little foam mattress because my littlest was recently sick, and from that she's needed to be in with me a bit at night. And that'll stay there until she's not needing it anymore. But I just pack it into our cupboard, and should anyone wander in, I can just lay it out for them.
Yeah, beautiful.
But they just sleep, like it's.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest fears, right? People are like, if you
you're
don't sleep train,
you're right? Healthy sleep
so
for life.
I just wanted that on the record.
Absolutely.
And all, of the 190,000 families in the Beyond Sleep Training group,
they all end up
everyone sleeps.
Yeah. Yes. And the other thing that actually though that we have found with the group, and this is something that's like only really emerged because it takes time. You need chunks of time to see patterns emerge. But something that's emerged over time is very much the case that babies are often very hard to diagnose with a whole array of things, because things that turn out to be signs and symptoms of various things can be mixed in with normal baby behaviors. So like lots of frequent waking can be normal. Yep. There was nothing going on for my guy that was like explainable. But for other babies, you can have sleep. They actually have got underlying issues that are making sleep much harder for them to find and maintain. And sometimes you won't learn that while they're teeny tiny. Sometimes it's only time that allows for a definitive diagnosis. And when parents ultimately find out that something was up for their baby, the relief they feel for having been there for their baby regardless is enormous. Yep. And these are your prime candidates for sleep training. These are your more wakeful babies. These are your restless sleepers. And these kids needed the nurturing more than ever. And yet they're also the ones who are most likely to be diagnosed with a sleep problem that is meant to be fixed by behavioral sleep training.
Yeah. The most vulnerable babies.
The most vulnerable babies. Yeah. We've had all sorts of things from hard to pick heart conditions, different breathing issues with airways, where babies were nursing at night because it kept their airways open. There's the whole ENT issues, ear infections that babies can't tell you their ears are sore, so they can be things that when they're toddlers or older and you actually can have more verbal input with them, they're much easier to pick up. For your babies, sometimes the only way to signal it is to wake more often and need you to soothe them more often. Yeah. So I think, that's something we've tracked over time as a clear pattern for us, is the relief people feel knowing that they were with their baby, they were supporting their baby, who then ultimately went on to have something that was underlying their wakeful behavior. And the answer was never to sleep train them.
Yes, absolutely. It would just put them in more distress because they would be in distress without any help, right? We have to believe our babies.
We have to believe them. And we have to, the process can be long, right? And so sticking with them and being their person through that time when we're not quite sure what's up, something might be up, but we're not quite sure, sticking with them will always end up, in hindsight, feeling like the right thing. You're not going to regret being there for them while you went through that path with them. And I think that's something we're seeing time and again. also for our little people who've got, who are neurodivergent, they quite often have intense sensory needs as infants that aren't necessarily what you pick. Like, you can't pick it. You don't know a baby's autistic. You don't know they've got any of these brain differences at birth. But as time goes on and the patterns emerge, it's a clear sign that when you look back, that baby always needed additional sensory input, or perhaps they needed the opposite. But by being in tune with them, you can be sure that you're actually meeting the needs of that baby that's right in front of you. And you don't need to know right away. It's okay that happens down the track. You don't feel that same regret that you might have felt if you disconnected from them and decided that they needed something completely different.
Completely. Babies and their mothers and fathers were meant to be in close relationship. And from this, from you sharing your story, that really highlights that too, right?
Absolutely.
That if we're doing anything to get in between a mom and a baby or dad and a baby, we are not helping anybody, right? We're actually, putting everyone at risk.
And I think that's there's your relationship is something to protect.
Yes.
And if you feel like you've got someone in your ear or on your feed who is trying to insert themselves in that relationship between you and your baby and saying things that give you that little icky feeling, that is not your person. Mm-hmm. So you do know your baby best. No one knows them like you do. And if you are meeting that person and looking at that little person and something feels off, that's enough. That's all you need.
Yep. I love that. I love that people can find that connection, the relief that they can connect with their babies and other parents in the work you do, and that they're not alone, because there's, I do lots of consults. People feel alone, right? And I always say, join the Beyond Sleep Training Project, post in there, see if someone's local to you, meet them in person, have at least one online or in-person friend who's doing this too. Right?
Absolutely. It's amazing how it feels to be able to just be with someone else and their parenting and not, just feel comfortable in your own skin, because it can take a while, when we become parents, we're really in a very vulnerable state because we're going through matrescence or putrescence, and it can get ugly, you get a little bit, it's really turmoil inside. And so being able to find people who align with your values and are also experiencing some of the struggles you're experiencing with, but not going to offer up solutions and fixes that don't feel right for you and your family. It's a really powerful thing, because we all need a good vent, right? Like, let it out. And I think that's for the Beyond Sleep Training Project, we've always said that, one thing we can guarantee is that regardless of what's going on, we're not going to suggest sleep training to you. And over the years, we've had a lot of people quite cranky about that at times, because it's like, and they'll give you an XYZ reason why we should be okay with it sometimes. It's like, nope, pretty much any other space in the internet, you can go and someone will give you that advice. That's like 99% of spaces. In this space, you can come to us with any problem, feeling anything that's going on, as big as you'll want to feel it, and know and trust us to not suggest sleep training to you. And that protected space is actually vital in a world where sleep training's dropped as a solution to parents, dime a dozen. It's everywhere.
Yep. Do you see, it probably wouldn't be in your group, but in your experience, a lot of pressure from people who have sleep trained, putting pressure on people? I see that a lot too.
There's also a lot of feelings about it, right? So I think, from being a sleep training failure, I did sleep train my baby. I know what went into that decision. And it wasn't what some people put out there. Like, I think people have some assumptions around parents who sleep train, that they assume they must be a bit cold and a bit callous, right? Like, they think it's something that only the, that kind of disconnected person could do, because how dare you? That is not the case. Most people who sleep train do it with deep, intense love and care for their baby, and they strongly believe it is the best thing for their baby and their family's well-being. So I think from the start, we need to come with that knowledge that sleep training isn't something awful people do. It's actually something lots of beautiful, loving parents do with very good intentions.
Yeah, most people, that's the reality. It's you have a baby, sleep training is part of the journey. When you do it, maybe there's some variation there, but this is something that is to be done.
That's it. Right? A lot of people talk about not ever knowing that it was even an option. Like they thought it was like it's like a rite of passage for babies in a lot of people's minds. It's something that must be done. And so when you realize that, there's no malice behind it. But what happens is it's a very, like the process means you get very invested in it working.
Yes.
So if it works.
So it's worth it. Yeah.
And it's worth it. It kind of validates what you go through. And you need that, right? Because it's not a fun process. The first 24 hours for most babies is pretty brutal. And to be able to justify that to yourself, you need to be able to see this fantastic outcome of a sleeping baby. Look how beautiful they're sleeping, and they smile. They're so smiley when I come in and pick them back up, because of course that's what the parent needs to feel. They need that to be worthwhile. And I don't for a second doubt again that is what they're truly believing and feeling about the process. We can see it from a different lens because, well, for me, I've been there and I've seen what it's like when that isn't the outcome. But the justifying what they go through to make it worth it in the end is what keeps sleep training going.
Yeah. Yeah. And sort of pressuring people around them to do it too.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's like, it's just, get on board. Like this is parenting, right?
And they love to do the whole, this is how it was for me. They make you feel like it's your fault if you're tired, right? If you don't sleep train. So you can't whinge. Yes. Don't go whinging to us about being tired because you won't sleep train that baby. That's, I think, where some of the divide comes in. It's like there's not the bridge across at that point for parents who've successfully sleep trained and the parents who either can't or won't sleep train. And that can be where conversations, like I think when parents meet, that can be where it can get quite sticky because it's hard. There's the common ground isn't necessarily there. But I think the thing we can always come back to is regardless, the parents actually are all doing what they believe is best for their baby and their family. And we can be satisfied with that, even if we're not in agreement about how that is achieved. We can be sure that is what's behind it all. And I think that gives us that compassion that we still all desperately need to make sure that this doesn't become a really point of tension. So you don't have to be great friends with that person, but we also don't necessarily need to be assuming the worst of each other either.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you said that. Yeah, I would always, when I would have people come to me when my little guy was young, with that, I think of a few people in my life, because we knew what each other were doing. I would always just go back to, how are you doing? They would be like, this happened, this and this. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, how are you? Yeah. How is this for you? And then that bridged the common motherhood experience very, very well in those situations.
And it's okay to pick your target. You don't have to talk sleep with everybody. I had to learn that, right? There was only certain people who I'd ever talk sleep with because it wasn't necessarily going to be a great conversation. So it's okay to pick your people and know that's you basically can protect your energy a bit, I think.
Before we say goodbye, I want to ask you, let's say you're meeting someone pregnant, expecting a baby. What are your top tips that you would give a new mom or dad?
Top tips. I would love for everybody to actually have some knowledge about what's realistic to expect from infant and toddler sleep. So you and your partner can get some conversations in about the fact that you're going to have a little person in your family who's going to need you a lot at night for the first few years of life, and how you can best facilitate that as a family. Knowing that what that infant behavior can look like really is going to be your first step in not getting rude shocks and surprises once babe gets here, and you'll be able to call back on that whenever you need to make sense of what's happening around you, because society gives you a warped view of what babies are. So if you've never had many babies in your life, you might not actually have a very accurate view of what it's like at all.
And the range is so big, right?
That would be,
you can go from like a baby.
Absolutely. Like you just see one baby does, you know, I've had three babies, so I have a reference range of 3 for personal experience, but you know, in the range, they were vastly different babies too. I've got a friend who had the sleepiest little souls on earth, and like the cruisiest little things, you know, you'd lay them down on a mat and off they'd pop to sleep. Meanwhile, my babies are all, but I can't imagine where they get it from, you know, like I do look at myself a little bit, and the energy levels and my husband's energy levels, it's like our babies very much match where we're at with these things. But yes, the range is enormous. The only person who's going to be able to tell you what your baby needs is your baby. So trusting them is going to be key. If they need you a lot, believe them. If they don't need you too much, try not to be too sad, because I feel like that's actually the thing that you might find you enjoy more than anything is that closeness and getting the opportunity to be your baby's person the way you are, and soak it in, because it doesn't last. I know people say it feels, oh my gosh, when you're in it though, holy cow, it can feel like it's just forever. But it is true, in the grand scheme of your life, they are babies for a smidge of time. And the more you can soak them in and accept their neediness and their dependence, the more you're going to be able to lean into it and figure out.
Rest in that relationship for the time you have.
Oh, so good. My third baby, I hadn't know, because by then I'd been able to throw all the rubbish out. Took me 3 babies, but you know, but I just remember it wasn't like it was easy, but it was mentally easy and emotionally easy, because I never once second guessed us. She was where she was when she needed to be, and it became a really uncomplicated situation between us. And so we just kind of flowed. You know, we weren't always perfect, but I didn't need to be, because I knew babies don't need perfect. But at the same time, we were definitely in sync in a way I never really got to be with my first 2 babies, because I was still not entirely trusting. Once I could get to that full trust, let it go and just enjoy. Oh, she was so healing, because I just soaked her in every chance I got without a smidge of guilt. It was mine to savor.
Oh, I love it so much. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge.
No worries. It's so good to actually, I love that you're doing a podcast spoiling your baby. Like, it's like,
lean in.
The power of just doing it the way you and your baby need to. I think, you know, there's so many things that can get in the way of parents and babies, and we need to pull it all back, because actually they're yours and you get to enjoy them. They're not just there to make you feel like life's hard.
I love that. Not to be managed, not to be controlled, to be savored and enjoyed.
They're not inconvenient.
They're
whole humans, and your work with them will always be valuable, whether it's in the day, whether it's in the middle of the night. It is valuable work you are putting into those babies. So if you're tired in the morning, you earned it. You know?
Exactly. I also always tell parents, all parents of babies are tired, whether you sleep train or not.
They are.
You're still tired. And if we set you up for success, you'll be just as tired as anyone else. Everyone's tired, right?
Yeah. Everyone's tired, and it's not I that's another one. People talk about being better parents by day.
I haven't really heard that.
Oh, that makes me
Oh, if they sleep train. Yes,
yeah, I
yes,
needed
yes,
to
yes,
sleep
yes.
train. Yes. So, because, they were not being the parent they wanted to be by day. And it's just like, ooh, we don't need an A game at any point. Babies need consistent, responsive care throughout a 24-hour period. And the work you do during the day is no more important than at night. And being able to see it that way, if you've had a rough night, it's actually okay if you've got opportunities to rest and take it easy by day.
Yes,
That's actually
absolutely.
parenting.
I had many days like that.
It's not, you're not exactly. You don't need to be on some high while the sun's up. Makes no sense. It's something that we work with our baby and we nurture across the 24 hours, whether we're together or not. And it's all valuable right through there. So you don't want to minimize this bit in favor of this bit. Nope. All across it. Consistency, not perfection.
That's so wonderful.
That's what we need.
And if a parent's struggling, if a mom's struggling, we can help them in so many ways before we do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of those ways is to, first of all, make sure you're giving yourself permission to rest when those opportunities arise, because so many people feel guilty for resting. And as a parent, that's actually part of your job. You take those opportunities to rest because that is your fuel to be able to parent. So rest is vital, and never feel guilty about it. I swear to God, that's why we were able to breastfeed. It's trying to get you to sit and
have your baby sleep on you.
And the frequency. Exactly, the frequency. It is nature's way of holding you down for that time to say rest. And if you can sink on in and see that as valuable, you're much more likely to protect it. You're much less likely to be jumping out of your skin to get away, to do all the things. You actually are doing really important work, and learning how to do things while your baby's awake, even better. So then if you are contact napping, you don't have this pile of things in your head of all the things you need to do because you've got to get the baby down. And then you don't have that frustration building constantly. You can just sink on in and go, yep, I'm sitting here. I've been to the loo. My phone's fully charged or the zapper's handy. I've had a snack. I've got my cup of tea next to me. Let's just nap it out.
The best. Awesome.
If you're working and you only got the weekend, take the weekend. Do what you can do.
Oh, thank you again. We'll have to have you back. Actually, will you tell everyone where they can find all of the things that you do?
Yes. So Little Sparklers has got a website, so www.littlesparklers.org, and it's got some great resources on there, including one about realistic expectations for infant and toddler sleep. It's a booklet. It's fantastic for expecting parents particularly, but also new parents, and it's meant to be shared between partners to make sure you guys are on the same page. And also the Beyond Sleep Training Project, we have all the socials, but the peer support group is on Facebook. So if you're looking for that community, that's where you will find us. I think that's probably our main thing.
Fantastic. Well, we'll talk again soon. And I'll have you back.
Thanks so much for having me. And as you can see, there was a lot to say. Sorry, Greer.
Oh my gosh. We could keep going forever. Everyone will enjoy this so much. Thanks, Carly.